I was just ready to record this some time ago, but I got a little thrown off by that whole COPPA deal. I got a little freaked out thinking that I was going to be fined $42,000 for having a cartoon character in any of my videos. But after reading through those clarifications that the FTC made, it looks like I'm not going to be affected, so I'm moving on with this channel. So yeah, Terminator Dark Fate was a thing, and it seems like pretty much everyone has forgotten about it. But I promised a spoiler review, so here it is. As I was about ready to record my spoiler-free review, I was debating with myself whether or not I wanted to just go ahead and discuss spoilers in that video, because by then, everyone knew what happened at the beginning of this movie. And that's saying something because hardly anyone saw Terminator Dark Fate. But I thought, I'm probably going to be talking spoilers longer than not, so I'll just make a separate video. So I'll start by clarifying that I did not hate this movie. I enjoyed it for the big, explosive, non-stop action flick that it is. There were moments that just had me laughing with excitement. That early fight scene in the factory when Grace is just whamming the Rev 9's head into the floor repeatedly, and the metal wraps around the hammer, he swings back up onto his feet, smacks her side, and the metal just pushes the hammer out of his head. That was so dope, I loved it. The acting was excellent, especially from Linda Hamilton, and it had that gritty tone needed to help make it feel like the definitive Terminator 3. And it's incredible to see that Arnold still has some good hits left in him at the age of 72. As Terminator Genisys put it, old, but not obsolete. As a side note, that's one thing that I liked about Genisys. Even with all of its verbal callbacks, it still came up with its own catchphrase to add to the franchise's list of quotable lines. I'm also somebody who didn't mind that Dark Fate followed the tried-and-true Terminator formula. They wanted to start fresh on sequels after Judgment Day and get people back into it, so an effective way of doing that would be to use the formula that works so well for the first two movies. I get that. It's just several storytelling devices that really don't work. The movie opens with a flashback scene to the year after what would have been Judgment Day, and it uses really good de-aging effects on Linda Hamilton, and what I at first thought were de-aging effects on Edward Furlong, but I'll get back to that. I was like, holy cow, I'm back! I can't wait for another adventure with these two. And then, before either of them say anything, a T-800 from the future they stopped just walks over and kills John. Way to get us back into the series by immediately killing off a person that we were rooting for to survive in the preceding film. And throughout the movie I kept thinking, no, that can't be the last we see of him. What, are they going to take a page from Genisys? We find out that John has been revived as a Terminator? That would make some sense, seeing how fond of Genisys James Cameron was. But nope, he's really dead. I get the theme and the meaning behind the title Dark Fate, that the darkest fate one can have is for their death to mean nothing. This is what Sarah has spent the last 20-something years fearing for her son, and it's what Donnie fears when her father and brother are killed by the Rev 9. But surprisingly enough, killing John at the start was James Cameron's idea, and you'd think that he of all people would know that this was a bad move. Being the writer and director of Aliens, he called Alien 3 a mess, saying that the decision to kill off Newt, Hicks, and Bishop at the very beginning was a slap in the face to the fans. Why did he think we'd feel any different about this? It is Alien 3 all over again. And the thing is, if you're going to go this route, there needs to be a full sequence dedicated to it. Take something like Avengers Infinity War, for instance. While it was a risky move killing off such a popular character as Loki in the opening scene, it was still an entire sequence that allowed the tragedy of his death to really sink in. It was done to shock us, and to give us an early feeling that none of our heroes are safe from Thanos' power. In Terminator Dark Fate, it's just a brief moment with Sarah narrating. The T-800 shoots John dead in an instant, and Sarah's basically just like, this is what happened, this is why I am where I am now. It has no weight at all, it's just a plot device. And Tim Miller announced at San Diego Comic-Con that Edward Furlong was reprising the role of John. If that doesn't seem like enough of a scam because we don't see him as his adult self, Furlong is only credited as John Connor reference, meaning he wasn't even physically there. They fully digitally rendered his 13-year-old self. So yeah, when Tim Miller made that announcement, he pretty much lied to us. Now, one question I had, even with the first two Terminator films, is why is it always just one Terminator that Skynet sends to kill John? Why not send an entire army of Terminators into the past? And this movie doesn't exactly take advantage of that idea, but it does do something along that line. We find out that Skynet sent several Terminators into different points in the past to kill John, I guess to take him and his mom off guard after settling down, say the opening of this movie. I don't think that'd be more effective than just sending them all to the same time at once, but I at least liked that they went halfway with the idea. Now, I know there are probably lots of little ways that you can explain away inconsistencies in a movie's time travel laws, but I still must ask. These Terminators that Sarah is hunting down, as well as the one that killed John, came from the future that Sarah and John kept from happening. So since they did stop that future, logically, wouldn't that erase any more Terminators sent from that future from existence? But the thing that really didn't add up was the backstory of the T-800. So Sarah, Grace, and Danny tracked down the home of the mysterious texter who had been sending Sarah the locations of each Terminator arriving from the no longer existing future. When they get there, they find that it was the T-800 that killed John, now having taken the name Carl. He has been living the last 20-something years as a real person, looking after a mother and son, and being the owner of an interior design company, which when we learn this does lead to some really funny lines. So he explains that after having no Skynet in the future to go back to, he started living among humanity, and he eventually realized that killing John was wrong. Now this doesn't make sense given what we know about Skynet's Terminator. It is designed purely to kill, and in Kyle Reese's words, it does not feel pity or remorse. Now in T2, the T-800 that was reprogrammed had this whole journey with John, and it was because of that that he came to see the value of human life. There's clearly another story to be told here. How did Carl gain a conscience? What experiences did he have that made him understand the differences between right and wrong? From the way the movie explains it, it seems that we're just supposed to accept that he came to his senses all on his own, and I can't do that given the knowledge of what Terminators are programmed with. And when you really think about it, what does Sarah learn in this movie that she didn't already? She vows to avenge her son by killing Carl after the Rev-9 is defeated, but later after they knock the Rev-9 off that plane, Carl is hanging there by the ramp, and Sarah is very tempted to take the opportunity to shoot him off, but then she chooses not to and lets him get back up. And then as she, Grace, and Danny are standing there with him as the really sweet final showdown starts, the Rev-9 is like, "You might as well just hand her over, why not?" Sarah replies, "Because we're not machines." So her whole arc here is realizing that the machine made to kill can grow a human conscience and understand the error of his ways. That's not far from what she learned in T2 when she fought alongside the reprogrammed T-800. The very last line of the movie is her saying, "If a machine can learn to value human life, then we can too." As I said in my spoiler-free review, even though I liked aspects of Terminator 3 Rise of the Machines, there were mistakes it made that I expected Dark Fate to avoid, but instead it just repeated them. One being the decision to kill John at the very beginning, which was about as bad as having Sarah die to leukemia off-screen. And I was really hoping that the sacrifice of the T-800 at the end of T2 would still have significance here, which it didn't really in Rise of the Machines because Skynet happens anyway. But we still get another AI network that Danny is destined to lead the resistance against. This one's called Legion, but it might as well be called Skynet 2.0 because it's basically the same thing. And anyway, it's only the second worst man-made disaster known as Legion. And so when this is made aware to you, it leaves you thinking, the T-800 didn't really end it all when he had himself lowered into the molten steel. He could have just stayed with Sarah and John. And you know, it was after leaving the theater that it kind of hit me. Is there really any way to make a continuation of T1 and T2 without undermining some of the accomplishments and sacrifices of those films? While I did enjoy Terminator Genisys for its concept of a fractured timeline, it can't help but feel like that concept removes the importance of the first two movies. And Rise of the Machines and Dark Fate did this for the reasons I just gave. These sequels do have their merit. Even Terminator Salvation, which I still think is the worst of the series, did have some impressive action scenes, and it did try to do something different. But it was when I saw Dark Fate that I realized you can't make a third Terminator film without some AI takeover that isn't Skynet Reborn or Skynet Replaced. Most others may have decided this already, but I've kind of just accepted that Terminator is best left as just that two-part story. If I ever get proven wrong, it's going to be some years from now, because this movie bombed hard, canceling out the trilogy that it was meant to start. And if they can't make a sequel with James Cameron playing a big part that doesn't at least come close to doing Judgment Day justice, then I have a feeling that this may be the final nail in the coffin for Terminator threequels. But then again, no franchise has ever really gone. As it stands now, I see T1 and T2 as the official timeline, with Dark Fate joining the others as just fun, explosive action flicks. And it takes 5th place among my ranking of the Terminator films. You know, even before I saw this movie, I knew that I was going to bring up Alien 3 while reviewing it, but not for the reason I did. I was going to say that starting over with an alternate follow-up to the second movie is a direction that I would really like to see the Alien franchise go in. I want to see a new Alien 3 where Ripley and Newt have been living peacefully on Earth for decades, and then their old nightmares come back when they have to fight off like a xenomorph invasion or something. You know, Cameron, you could make it up to us that way, if you have any spare minutes while making all those Avatar sequels. That's a wrap. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Like and share, subscribe for more. This is Pop Culture. I'm Alex Pop.